to go to inner space, and that we would create a NASA for inner space that would be mission control, that would begin to assimilate all the various strata of science in a way that made it all coherent with one another. So on a personal level, here's an anecdote. My Aunt Rosemary obviously had an intellectual disability and was the inspiration for a lot of things, including the National Institutes for Children and Human Development. Because my Aunt Eunice wanted to know how to prevent, developmental disabilities. That was my Aunt Eunice's whole initiative. And so obviously many people with intellectual disabilities have higher dementia rates than the average population. So the NICHD, National Institutes for Children and Human Development, was researching dementia for people with Down syndrome 35 years ago. So get this, my Aunt Eunice, which her name is now the name on the National Institutes for Child and Human Development. Those of you who are in that field know that. And she was all about dementia for those with developmental disabilities. Who could have imagined that her husband, my Uncle Sarge Schreiber, died of Alzheimer's? And that right now all my 5 Schreiber cousins are all terrified they're going to have Alzheimer's. And guess what's given us the most insight? What institute has given us the most insight on the mechanisms of dementia? The National Institutes on Aging, who's the National Institutes on Children. I mean, what do children have to do with dementia? You would be surprised to know it's the National Institute on Children that's funded the most formative research that's going to save those with Alzheimer's. How could my Aunt Eunice have been so prescient to know that by starting an institute for her sister, that institute would pave the way for a therapy or cure for her 5 children to not die from the illness that took their father's life? You can't make that up. And it just proves the fact that research into the brain is going to yield results for everybody, no matter what the brain-related illness or disorder it is. We have to work together. And we have to do this on a global scale. Because God forbid Australia, Europe, China, and India are doing this research using different protocols, different languages in terms of science, because then we miss out on the real findings that could help answer our challenges with people who suffer from these illnesses here in the United States. So we started this thing called One Mind for Research. Now, what got us to outer space? Sputnik. It was the great challenge for national security. What's the great challenge for national security today? I believe it's the returning veteran with traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress disorder. Those are the signature wounds of war. We do not know how to even diagnose them or treat them. Our diagnostic criteria for traumatic brain injury is mild, moderate, and severe. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? We have over 2.5 million traumatic brain injuries every year that are pretty severe. And the best thing we can do when they get wheeled into the ER is, well, it's, I think that's moderate. I mean, if this were cancer, I would say, well, you got some moderate cancer. Not severe, as far as I can tell. I mean, this is like, again, you can't make this stuff up. Everything in this world of brain treatment is so far behind. And so we need to expedite this. So I hired the 4-star general that ran operations in Iraq, and I said, maybe you could corral all of the disease advocacy groups to understand they have a common interest. And General Pete Corelli said, I'd be happy to. And he got the autism folks to say, oh, well, this would be helpful to us because a lot of traumatic brain injury, reflects itself in similar kind of symptomatology as autism. He got the Alzheimer's folks because, of course, TBI leads to higher dementia rates. He got the epilepsy folks because, of course, if you get a traumatic brain injury, you're higher risk for epilepsy. He got the ALS folks, and he got the Parkinson's folks because traumatic brain injury leads to the kind of neurodegeneration that creates the symptoms of Parkinson's. All of a sudden, he got all the most powerful advocacy groups to work together on setting up a protocol that would advantage all of them in terms of the understanding of the mechanisms, because we understand how the brain works by understanding those brains that don't work optimally. That's how science works today. We have a better understanding of all of our brains by studying the brains of those who aren't having optimal functionality in their brain. That's how science works. And if we can bring all that data together, use common data elements, and disseminate that, we're going to all get to the day where the proverbial Neil Armstrong, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. All of us are going to be better off if we get to this as if we're in crisis. Because